Hello, this is Robin. Hi, so today is October 5th, 2025, and this is the Free Code Camp Daily Challenge, and I'm going to try to attempt to figure this out. I did take a slight peek at this for a few minutes just because I like to preview it before I try to record a video. Um, so this is Space Week Day 2, Exoplanet Search. And it says for the second day of Space Week, you are given a string where each character represents the luminosity reading of a star. Determine if the readings have detected an exoplanet using the transit method. The transit method is when a planet passes in front of a star, reducing its observed luminosity. So it basically blocks some light. Luminosity readings only comprise of characters 0 through 9 and A through Z, where each reading corresponds to the following numeric values. Characters 0 through 9 correspond to luminosity levels of 0 through 9. Characters A through Z correspond to luminosity levels 10 through 35. So our possible values are 0 through 35. A star is considered to have an exoplanet if any single reading is less than or equal to 80% of the average of all readings. For example, if the average luminosity of a star is 10, it would be considered to have an exoplanet if any single reading is 8 or less. And here they gave us some tests. Our function name is hasExoplanet and passes in a string of readings. And for example, 665544554 should return false. Basically, if you were to get the average of all of this, the lowest number is probably more than 80% of the average of the entire set of numbers. And then this one is using letters F, G, F, F, C, F, F, G, G should return true. I'm guessing C is probably lower or equal to 80% of all of those if they're converted from the values of 10 through 35 for each particular character. And they've got a few other extra ones here that are made up. So this looks a little complicated. This is a lot different than yesterday's where we were just returning um, something based on just the number it was given. So I think what I would do is sometimes when you have something complicated that has a lot of steps, I like to kind of write out a set of comments and kind of call it like a pseudocode and just try to, write out the steps I think I might need to take. So I'm going to just put in some comments kind of like this with two slashes. It means it ignores the code when it hits that line. So it looks like in order to calculate an average, we need the number of items that we're averaging. We're going to add them all together and then divide by the numbers, which in this case would be the length of the string. So I think we need to get the length of the string and store that in a variable. And then we need to loop through each character. And as we do that, convert each character to a number from 0 to 35. And I think in this case, we're going to want to check is it if the character is a number, use 0 through 9. If the character is a letter, use 10 through 35. I think this is the one that's going to stump me. I have an idea, so we'll come back to that. Add, and as we're doing this, add up the sum of the numbers. And I think we're going to also want to try to find the lowest number. Figure out the lowest number of the group. So I think as we're looping through, we can compare it. Or the first one, we'll set the lowest number to the first number, the first character. And then as we go along, if we find a smaller one, we'll store that as the minimum. So we'll compare that. So we need an if statement for that. And after we've looped through all of the characters, is the lowest number equal than or less than or equal to 80% of the average. So we're going to need to calculate 80%, I can't type, of the average if the lowest number is, I think, less than or equal to 80%, less than or equal to the lowest of the 80% number, return true. I think I have it. Else return false. I think this is basically what we're looking to do here. And we're going to run the tests. As you can see, they're all doing that. Nothing is coming up because we didn't put any console logs or any output. All right, so now we have to code this. This might take a minute, so this is probably not a 10-minute video. So let's do let length reading length equal readings dot length. I believe that's what it was in JavaScript. I can't remember if there's one of these. Let's console log this. Let log, so we can test this as we go. Length. Let's check this right now and see if it works. All right, now we have length of 9. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the first one of 6, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4, 4, 5, 5, 4. That is correct. Let's also set up a test reading equals, and let's go copy one of the other numbers. This one should return true. So copy that, put the value in here. Actually, I think save readings. We're going to trick this into using a specific value. Whoops. Readings. So we're going to change it on the way in. So in the last couple of videos, I keep forgetting to undo this and then I get stuck. So don't let me forget. So this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, let's try the big long one. And we have 22. Okay, I'm going to assume that's probably correct. Let's go back to the first one. Okay, so now we've checked the length. Now we want to loop through each character. Now, in JavaScript, if I recall, a string is an array of characters. So we're going to have to figure out how to do this. So since we have the length for I equals, I can't remember how this works. If, you know what, let's look it up. I should know this, but it always helps to look up and make sure, because especially if you're in a language you're not intimately familiar with, like I should be known with C, but anyway, for loop. It's always good to check it. So a for loop has an initialization value, a condition, and a final expression. So we want an example. So let I equals 0, I is less than 3. So we're going to check for the length in this case, and then I plus plus means we increment it. And I'm just doing this because even if you're new to coding, it doesn't hurt to look these up. And we're going to put the closing brace here, but we're going to move it down because you notice I have these tabbed in, so this is kind of like inside the loop. And this is going to be reading length. Now, if we start with 0 and end up at less than 1 from the reading length, I think this should work fine. Or we could start with 1 and say equals reading length. Now, if I recall, and again, we'll double check this, but I believe JavaScript arrays actually initialize the first element as 0, not instead of 1. So let's assume that's the case. All right. I also need to know which one we're on. Console. So we're going to convert each character to a number, 0 through 35. So let's just log and see where we're at here. So we're going to go readings. In an array, you have a bracket, and that tells you which element you're on. We're going to say we're at the I element, so it's going to increment. Let's check this. All right, so now this is returning. So you can, in a string, it's technically an array, so you can actually refer to it, the element of that, the position of that string by using an array element like this. So 665544554. So we have the full number here. That is correct. Okay, good. Let's move this down to here. Now we need to convert each number to a character number, or each character to a number. So if the character is a number, use 0 through 9. All right, this is where this is going to get me a little bit. I think I can do this one. I can't remember. Okay, so JavaScript, check, character is a number. Check if a character is a digit. Okay, now there's a regular expression. They're suggesting a regular expression, but that wasn't the question. So I guess we could do that. Um, Interesting. Actually, you know what? It's not the worst. Or we use is a not a number and number. This approach attempts to convert the character to a number and checks to see if the result is not a number. So you can use the function number on a character, and then you can see if it's not a number and if the original character is a single digit string. Okay. I notice this is a little complicated. Regex can actually be a little simpler. I'm going to go with the regular expression because we did that a couple days ago. So let's copy this. We're going to make a new function just below this, like a subfunction. So is character number regex character, and we're looking for the word letter. D stands for digit, by the way. We're going to test the character to see if it's a digit. So if we want that, and we want the readings I, that's the character, by the way. We're going to put a brace there, so we're going to have to do something here. So we're going to put this here. It's kind of our pseudocode. And we also need something to check if something's a letter. I have a feeling a regular expression, I can't remember off the top of my head if a D is, let's see, letter. Probably very similar. Let's see what the answer is. Ah, A through C, A through Z. So it looks like we're using capitals. So I think we're going to just change this a little bit. It is using capital letters. That's according to what it required. Now, later on, this might be nice to check to see if we could return the uppercase and convert lowercase to uppercase. There's a way to do that too, because that way if somebody types it in wrong, we'll still get the correct answer. But for now, we're going to start with A through Z. capital. So, same idea. If, now you notice this is a little bit different. Let's do this red, just kind of keep things consistent here. Is letter regex, is character number, your letter. So we like to keep code kind of consistent. It makes it readable. You notice AI doesn't seem to notice stuff like that, especially when you ask it ratings. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna put the brace in there. Let's move our little comment up inside the if statement. There we go. I see we have, I'm going to use Shift Tab and it kind of moves it out. There we go. All right, add up the sum of the numbers. So how are we going to keep a list of the numbers? Something to think about. So if the character is a number, use 0 through 9. Oh, so we need something to keep up a sum, don't we? Let's set up another variable. Let sum equals 0. We're going to initialize a sum number or variable. So we're going to add these up. I think I saw something where it converted a number to a number. So let's get a working number here. Let current number equals 0. All right, so current number equals reading. Oh, we wanted number, didn't we? Number readings. I could have probably made this a little simpler also by just put readings I into a separate working variable. And now we want sum equals sum plus the current number. Because we have to get the sum of all the numbers so we can do our average at the end. So this is the one that I thought was going to trip me up a little bit with the letters, converting 10 to 35. We might make a function for this, a separate function. Okay, so in my head, I know that characters are stored as ASCII characters, and in the ASCII hexadecimal, I think they go from roughly 30 through, oh, that's the numbers, but there's a set of ASCII numbers. We have a character number. So get ASCII value of a character. So let's look this up. Oh, they start at 65. A starts at 65. So character equals A, ASCII value equals the character code at 0, which is 0 here. Console log ASCII value output 65. So if you have a string with multiple characters and want to get the ASCII value of a character within that string, specify its index. We're going to use the letter I for that. So let's grab this. Now we're not going to use a constant, but we're going to get something that starts at 65. Apparently E, the output is at 101. So we're going to check these to see how this works. Get the ASCII value of for the characters. I'm not sure if it goes 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, because I thought E would be at 69. And why does this think it E is an output of 101? That's kind of a little weird. All right, let's just grab this. No, we're not going to get the right number by just doing this. So readings I, we need character at readings I. I have a suspicion this is going to be a little bit weird. So I'll tell you what, let's do a little troubleshooting and do our console log here. So current number, and we'll do another one right underneath it. Did I turn off the other one? The length. We don't want this anymore. That's going to get in the way. Actually, you know what? That's not the worst thing. Let's run it. So we're going to get doubles here, by the way. So 6 is 6, 6 is 6, 5 is 5, 5 is 5, 4 is 4. Okay, that's good. So it looks like that one's working like we expected. Let's put the number one in here, or the letters in here. Let's see what kind of weird values we end up with. We actually want them to convert to 10 through 35, so we might have to do a piece of subtraction on this. Length of 9, and we did F, and it kind of has an error, I think. Hmm. That's because we did something wrong right here with this code. We're just double assigning by accident. We just want it to do that. Character code. Okay, let's run that again. Nope, that doesn't like that either. Character code readings I. Wait, I have a feeling wait a second. I think that's wrong too. Oh yeah, so the character is the actual character. Here we want my string character code, so that's going to be readings I, character code at I. Okay. Whoops. Readings I at character code at position I. Now it's a little confusing, but there we go. F is 70. So like if we started at 65, this should be 71. You know what? This should actually be 0 because we're getting the first character, because readings I is only one character long. So that was an invalid array reference. There we go. 70, 71, 70, 70, 67, 70, 70, 71, 71. Here we go. So that's correct. And A would be, let's put an A on the front of this. B, C, D, E, F. We can get a few of those at the front. Let's change this. Run it. We should get 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. So we actually want this to start at the letter 10. So to get converted 65 to 10, what do we need to do? We need to subtract. So 65 minus 55, so we need to subtract 55. So right here, we need to subtract current number equals current number minus 55. Let's try that. So we're going to do a little bit of math here. We're going to force it to be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so let's do up to Z, or X, Y, Z. Make sure the last number is correct. It should be a 35. And Z is 35. There we go. So that's one way to do this. There might be I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but this can work. So let's keep it simple. And at the end, we want to do console log. So add up the sum of the numbers. We have already been doing that as we go, so we should have it. So let's check what the sum is. Sum, oops. I have to do a colon. Let's do plus and sum. Let's see what the answer is. Our sum is 193. our finishing sum. If you notice, it's been incrementing. So we start with 10, add 11, 21, add 12, 33, and so on. And our final sum is going to be 193. Now, actually, we've already been doing adding up the sums as we go. And you can see that's what works. So we also need to figure out the lowest number of the group as we go. And so let's set a number that lowest number equals 0. We'll start with 0. And so these if statements get the current number. Actually, we should move this down. We shouldn't be doing a sum inside of each of these. We should be doing it here. Because according to the pseudocode, it would be done outside. We don't need to do it twice. That's redundant. The only reason we're doing this is we're checking the character if it's a number, if it's a letter. So Shift Tab, let's clean that up a little bit. Add up the sum of the numbers. There we go. Because we're just doing it for each character as we go. Now we need to figure out the lowest number. So the lowest number equals 0. And what we're doing is, as we go through this, we're going to, well, if the current number is 0, the lowest number, maybe this should be a bigger number to start off. Let's say 99. Because our greatest number could be 35. I'm just going to go with 99. So if the current number is less than the lowest number, we're going to reset the lowest number. Lowest number equals current number. And at the end, we're going to console log lowest number equals the lowest number. Let's run that. So currently the lowest number is 10. The lowest number stays at 10 all the way to the end. Now what if we did this in a different order? X, Y, Z, do some random stuff, kind of, and we'll put a 5, and then a 4. So the lowest number at the end should be 4. If we run down through it, our lowest number at the end is going to be a 4. Okay. Hopefully that made sense. Okay. Now, is the lowest number less than or equal to 80% of the average? Calculate 80% of the average. If the lowest number is less than or equal to 80% number, return true. I think we could probably do this on one line. But just for keeping our pattern, say let 80, oops, that equals 0 for it to start off. So what is the 80% number? 80%. Oh, we don't have an average yet, do we? Well, let's just do it like this. An average is you take the sum and you divide it by the number, the length. Do we have that? I forgot the value, do I? Radiant length, there it is. And typically you would multiply by, you can either multiply by 100 to get an actual number. or you're going to return back a decimal like 0.8. So we can just stick with 0.8 times 0.80. I spelled that wrong, 80%. And now here we go. If lowest number is less than or equal to the 80%, return true. Now technically we could just return false automatically. Let me show you what it looks like if you were just to specify it. Watch this giving a bug. And it's also going to be larger than, and then return false. And return readings. Now, we actually don't want to return the readings. We want to return the true or false. So we're going to take this off because technically that's what we're doing. Now, normally on the other projects, I think we would do our first return and then default to false. All right, let's turn this off so we don't keep doing that. Let's see if this actually runs. Oh, wow, there we go. Now the code's a little bit ugly, but it works. What you would do is you go take out all the junk, kind of clean it up, make it look nice. And you can see this is just a little messy. So let's shift tab that back out. Shift tab that out. Put a carriage return there. Turn choose. Now I don't like the way this, if it was a little wider like that, it looks better. And let's shift tab this up because the tabbing is kind of messed up. Actually, it's still messed up. Let's move it one more. Let's run it. Still works. We just want to verify it. Okay. The other thing we would do is we would, again, for production, go remove all the console logs or pass a debug variable to disable them because it does slow down the application. And remember we were talking about doing validation for lowercase a through z. We would want to do that. It would be pretty simple to do that. We could return a through z. And then up here where it does it's character code regex readings I, and then we could say dot uppercase. I believe. Well, let's convert. Let's check that real quick for the letter to uppercase. I believe it's probably to uppercase. This is how we would do that. It's to uppercase, and then it's got two parentheses because this is technically a function. Let's run this again. And did we break it? I think oh, we might have. Huh. Alrighty. It does not like that. Okay. Let's stick it right here. So the next step is that we normally do is to put this into ChatGPT and have it do peer review. And let's see if we can find that error. I'm kind of curious without even asking. For this JavaScript, I hate that. I probably should get us. Okay, should probably make an account just for this. Coding challenge. And we're going to go paste all that fun stuff in here. Let's see if it can figure it out. I'm sure it will. Pretty smart. A little too smart. My answer is now I didn't do this totally on my own. So if I was whiteboarding this for an interview, I would totally fail this. But whatever. I'm not, so This is more to just kind of work through how to troubleshoot and to do some basic coding. I think there is an error for the two uppercase portion. Also, can you suggest ways to make this code better? Let's see. Aha, you're absolutely right. It's logically incorrect because is character letter regex returns a boolean. Well, duh, okay. You're trying to call two uppercase on a boolean, which just throw a type error. First check if the character is a letter and then convert it to uppercase only if it is. Okay, so up here, let character upper equal readings to uppercase, and then we convert it. So, yeah, that makes sense. I should have caught that. But that's just one way to get this figured out. Uh-huh. So this is a little bit different than Google suggested. So now we're passing it. So we want character actually. So we're just going to convert it to character uppercase. Character code at 0. Oh, right here we just do the conversion to 55. Um, why are we doing that? We're trying to return a true or false. I think that's kind of dumb. You know what? We could just say this to uppercase. Eh, I don't like this. Yeah, let's get rid of that again. However, before we do, well, if I do it this way, it's going, when I do the character at, it's going to kind of do this wrong. So we actually need to do two uppercase, character at 0, and we need to take this part out. Let's see if that works. No, of course not. So sometimes doing validation is kind of a pain. So readings I. Oh, maybe we should do this. Oops, wrong spot. Should be right there. Am I wasting too much time on this? I probably am. Okay, let's assume that I'm wasting too much. We can figure that out. I mean, that's you can leave that for extra credit if you want to try to sort that out. A little bit overkill here. I don't like you. That looks ugly anyway. And now we've got a broken code. That's because I left this here. That's just ugly. Okay, let's just leave it alone. They asked for uppercase to begin with. We would probably assume that if we were doing this for real, we would want to validate this before it came in. We could actually convert all of that piece by piece, or anyway, yeah, something like that. We'll come back to it. So suggestions to clean up and improve the code. Refactor the conversion logic into a helper function. Make your main loop cleaner by moving character to luminosity conversion into its own function. So that would be a good idea because we got this giant if statement and we do want to simplify that so we could actually make this a lot easier. Again, simplifying the main function to refactor the logic for clarity. So let sum equals 0, lowest equals infinity. Oh, they're suggesting use infinity instead of 99. That would probably be good too. Oh, that's something new. I just learned that. There's a for loop. Get luminosity readings I, sum plus value. So yes, we could also use, instead of sum equals sum plus value, sum plus equals value. That's a shortcut that's actually commonly used. And if value is less than lowest, lowest equal to value. So that's doing our lowest number. And here's our average, and our threshold is average times 0.8, and return lowest is less than or equal to threshold. Now, instead of a true or false or that double if statement, this is actually more efficient. Now, this is doing a comparison, which will return a true or false automatically. So we just have one return value. Add basic validation. You should ensure only valid characters are processed. And here we go for this. Okay, this is our solution to the to uppercase. So we can return number, else if A through Z test returns character to uppercase character code. And this is actually returning the number instead. So this subfunction, the get luminosity, is actually returning a number, not the true or false if it is one thing or the other. And we can throw an error if the invalid character doesn't match. So a summary of key changes to uppercase on Boolean, move it inside the character check, complex main loop. It was complex. And again, this is just the first draft, just to get it functional. And then a lot of times I go back and we'll clean up code. The idea is just to get it working. Redundant code, clean it up with simpler logic. Now it does make sense to actually move things into other functions. And optional logging. So remove for clarity or use if debugging. That's talking about all the console logs that I left in there, and it always says that. So I think that would be basically the answer. So I think a couple things I learned is that the to uppercase going into a separate function would be a good idea. The to infinity is actually a really good idea, or setting to lowest number equals infinity. Let's try that real quick. And that does work. That way it's the largest possible number in case the code does change for some reason and they have other parameters. We don't want to hit an arbitrary ceiling that doesn't need to be there. And of course, cleaning up the console logs. So basically that's it. Gave us some very good suggestions, and I hope this helps. If you made it this far, feel free to comment, like, subscribe. I'm going to be trying to do a lot more of these. Can't guarantee I'm doing it every day just because, life is busy, but I'm going to do my best to try to get a lot of them done for a little while. So, again, thank you for watching.